From Studio 1A in Tampa, Florida, comes a talk show that really feels your pain and tells you like it is. We love America and all that freedom-loving Americans want to protect. Live from coast to coast and on your radio, it's For the People with Keith Allen.
We'll help you survive this thing called life. We're for the people. Whatever your source of stress or strife, for the people is there.
Hello, Mr. and Mrs. America. I am Keith Allen, and proudly welcoming you into this Monday's edition of For the People on November the 27th, 2017. We got a big show lined up for you, so sit back and get your daily infusion of common sense. The news headlines, what's going on around our country. Yeah, common sense, a rarity to find. If you're new to For the People, that's what you get every single day. We don't try to make things up like CNN or MSNBC, but after returning from Mar-a Lago, Donald Trump is trying to school CNN and MSNBC, and of course he's taken to the Twitter sphere. I know some of you are like, not again. And why is he doing this? Well, you know, he's been battling what he calls fake news, and just can't really sleep on it because of the fact that networks are trying to destroy Donald Trump. I mean, that's the bottom line. I think that's the way that Trump supporters look at it. That's the way that the Fox News channel looks at it. Any conservative person in their right mind realizes the attack that conservatism is really taking on. And I think Donald Trump rightly takes to Twitter to really allow the numbers to come out. So let's just get into it here. We should have a contest as to which of the networks plus CNN and not including Fox is the most dishonest, corrupt, and or distorted in its political coverage of your favorite presidents. Me, Trump tweeted, "They're all bad. Winner to receive the fake news trophy." CNN's James Tapper quoted the president's tweet sharing a link to a CNN poll from earlier this month reflecting Trump's approval ratings at a new low. So he says Trump, honesty, 1,628 false or misleading claims over 298 days. And so an update on the fact-checker year-long project analyzing this, categorizing and tracking every false or misleading claim by the WashingtonPost.com. And so let's see what they came up with here. James Scarborough caught pretending pre-taped day after Thanksgiving show was live. That's true. That did happen. That's egg on their face for the Morning Joe program. Pretty bad. Morning Joe viewers are slamming Mika and Joe Scarborough for passing off their post-Thanksgiving show as a live broadcast. The good news is that the ratings are terrible. Nobody cares. And at Fox News is much more important to the United States than CNN, but outside of the U.S., CNN International is still a major source, fake news, and they represent our nation to the world very poorly. I have to agree with Donald Trump. I have pointed this out on my broadcast. It's the perception of folks outside of our country, and yes, the stuff goes by a satellite. There's companies that rebroadcast this stuff. People have back satellites, and this is the stuff that they watch. So when they're putting out fake propaganda, crap news, it makes the country look bad. If only CNN, if any dishonest media outlets could understand that when they put this stuff out. But the problem is, it's not the employees. It's the management. It's the owners. It's them. Because if you don't report the news with a slant and with a liberal bias, then you're out on your can. It doesn't work out that way. Just like if a liberal reporter actually went to Fox News Channel, it wouldn't work out too well there either, would it? But I'd have to say, out of all the news outlets, they have more viewership better ratings than any of the major networks. We're talking MSNBC, CBS, CNN, all of them, PBS. They have more viewership hour to hour than any of them. They're the most viewed network on the planet. But as Trump put it out, the fake news represents our country in other nations. And that's a shame. And it does represent a lot of the disharmony that goes on with these networks. So they don't realize the damage that they're doing. It really just baits the stereotype of America that people have over the country that, you know, we don't have our crap together as we once did. And, of course, they didn't hear any of this backlash with Obama for 8 years, and now it just looks like one Jerry Springer show. And you got to thank the liberals for doing this, the George Soroses for doing this. But anyways, this is not the first that Trump has criticized Scarborough. It's just, I think Donald Trump, when he sees this stuff happening, where they give his approval ratings at an all-time low, that he's not telling the truth, that he's being disingenuous, he's lying to the American, you know, everything's a lie, it gets under his craw. I mean, it upsets him. I think the big change for Donald Trump is that he is used to a environment to where he is more in control of things, and with Washington, I think he finds that there's less control of it, and he can't control these people. You can't do it with ratings. You can't do it with a win. You can't do it with stature or title. You can't do it with any of these things. It's different from being the apprentice. It's different from being just the celebrity or the real estate mogul. And I believe that these particulars still haven't fully set in for Donald Trump. And I think it's frustrating for him because he's a man who was probably used to not having these type of challenges brought against him. And now I think it's just very hurtful because he knows that he's done his level best to get our country and more level footing and more stable in so many different ways, and he's not getting the thank you. But my suggestion for the president, seriously, and for anybody that's close to around him, that he really needs to just suck it up a little bit more, and it's as painful as it is, to get on the camera and just stay on point, and not give in every single time that somebody says something critical, and just keep it positive. And when reporters talk about these things, you know, he needs to do what he did on the campaign trail. He goes, listen, I don't know what these polls reflect, but as you can realize, I'm winning everywhere else I go. The numbers show a different story. And as you know, if I paid attention to the numbers, what they were saying, we wouldn't be in the White House, and not let it bother him. Other presidents have had dismal ratings. Reagan had his share of bad numbers, and then they went up again. I think if he stays on the economy, gets some legislative wins in the House and the Senate both together, and makes good on these campaign promises and stays on course. And gosh, I'm one now just to say stop giving in to all these antics, because if anything, I see it happening is that he's giving more credence to Joe Scarborough, to their show, and giving him more ratings. It gives more reason for the left to actually tune in. Because, you know what I'm saying? Because it's curiosity. Oh, are they bashing it? I think they're giving him ratings. You're giving him too much time. You're giving him too much power, and they'll continue doing this. It'll drive him crazy if you stop saying anything. Just back off it. Not let that be a strategy. And I don't know who tells him to keep on doing this. Like all tweets, that would be unusual, but every tweet. It does. I don't think it's really helpful, and I hope this is not a continuation every single week where we hear the sound off or the smackdown with Twitter every single night with numbers, specifically the numbers. Now, you know, if it's something to do with Russia, I get sounding off that about collusion with the Russians and his direct involvement and with companies, and what the left is saying that he's still making money off his company, he's still controlling his company. You know, the reason he doesn't sleep because he's running the Trump organization where he should actually be working for. Yeah, there's people that accuse him of this. that he's not doing his job, and he's, just missing in action in the Oval Office because he's sitting there too concerned about the TV shows, watching too much. This is the discussion. That's what people accuse him of. He's too much golf, too much TV, blah, 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 blah. This is a weird occurrence, and this has happened in Florida. A man has been charged for stabbing someone with a 3-foot-long sword. In Florida, I'm not even kidding. 3-foot sword. George Livingston, 51, was arrested after a man was found dead and covered in blood next to a 3-foot sword near a railroad track on Saturday, according to the Sun Sentinel. Livingston and Beckett reportedly both lived at a nearby homeless camp. Police believe the attack, which was referred to as a murder, dangerous, deprived, without premonition of Livingston's booking sheet, was part of a fight he had with Beckett. So apparently they were fighting and had a feud. Law enforcement reportedly responded to a call in which someone reported a subject covered in blood and was lying next to the railroad tracks with the sword. And the Post reported Livingston spent 5 years in state prison after he failed to abide by a 1998 court order to cease contact with someone for protection against repeated violence. Livingston continued to harass and engage in threatened behavior towards the victim. He later spent 2 years in prison for another charge of aggravated stalking, according to the Palm Beach Post. Livingston is currently being held without bond in the Palm Beach County Jail. So he made good on his threat. Repeat offenders. Going out and doing it again, but this with a sword. Jeez. It's not just ISIS that uses swords and knives. It shows this guy on a security surveillance video. It says, sword-wielding thug robs fast food restaurant. The victim, identified by the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office as David Beckett, 58, had visible injuries consistent with a violent attack. A spokesperson for the Sheriff's Office told the Beach Post. And shortly after he did this on the railroad tracks, left his friend dead, he goes into a convenience store and shows himself really messed up because apparently the guy was trying to defend himself. But, guy covered in blood. Jeez, how savage. Scary. At least they caught the guy. Found the guy nearby a convenience store after the whole deal. He had blood on him, too. So one of the reasons why somebody called the police, one of the local shop authorities did that. Waking up this morning, and some people really like these things, but they're very deadly, obviously. I'm talking about the Bali Volcano. Indonesian authorities are expanding the established danger zone, is what they're calling it, about an eruption, and an erupting volcano that is hurling ash at 9,800 feet into the atmosphere as we speak, whose explosions could be heard over 7 miles away. Experts say lava is welling up in the crater, sometimes reflecting a reddish-yellow glow in the ash plumes. The agency raised the volcano's alert to the highest level early today and expanded the danger zone to 6 miles. It said that the larger eruption is possible. Spokesperson for the Suto Purwo told the news conference in Jakarta that the extension of the danger zone after that affects more than 22 villages. There's about 90,000 to 100,000 people. He said about 40,000 people have evacuated, but others have not left because they feel safe or don't want to abandon their livestock. There was a volcano back in 1963 there, same location, killed 1,100 people. The Indonesian Disaster Agency called on 100,000 to evacuate and expanded the danger zone after the eruption. Authorities raised the alert to the highest. Hundreds of flights were canceled, leaving 59,000 tourists stranded on the island. Closures will continue until Tuesday, but officials said they are closely monitoring the situation and will determine every 6 hours whether the airport should remain closed. We now have to find a hotel and spend more money that they're not going to cover us for. And when we get home, unfortunately, said Canadian